Welcome back to this new video, guys, of TechSpress. Today let's check out how to add a table of contents automatically. So this is a great choice because a table of contents tutorial is more effective when explicitly focusing to the automatic method. So if you ever had the manual type out of a table of contents, you know the frustration when you add the paragraph and all the page numbers shift. For example, if I have here my first page, I go for a table of content, and let's say that I go for page number 1. And down here I have what is dark fantasy. So I start with what is dark fantasy. And what I can do is to go for the 3 dots, space, and let's say that this one starts at number 3, right? And we do this on and on and on. Now this is an actual simple solution, but first we needed, of course, to do a few elements in order to have something like this. So the structure and document with heading styles. If you go into the Home tab on the Revit and look for the Style section, these styles are the language Word uses to build your TOC. So select your main section title, like here, for example, the Dark Fantasy. I double click and I wanted to make sure that this one appears as heading number 1. Then, for example, I'm going to focus here for this table of contents. I'm going to be deleting this because I don't want to see this anymore. So I can select the what is the dark fantasy, then I can insert a new page. Now into this specific page I'm going to be pasting the actual title, which is dark fantasy, and then I'm going to be putting this element, for example, into the center. So once again I type dark fantasy, I copy, I change from normal to heading number 1, apply to this section, and down here is all my information. Into all my information, what I needed to do is to make sure that all of the titles and the subtitles are as equal. For example, the dark fantasy versus other fantasy titles would be the heading number 2. Now, why dark fantasy is popular, I'm going to be selecting header number 2. And all of this information, all of this text should be appearing as a paragraph, or as a strong, or even a quote. So the last one sentence definition, I'm going to be changing normal to quote, and there we go. So lastly, what I need to do, of course, is to make sure that all of this element has not been correctly formatted. Heading number 2, audience influences, heading number 2, the key characters, heading number 2. So if you want, for example, to have, for example, let's say, for example, I go from the start in key characters and I put it, for example, into another page. I go for key characters and there we go. Origins and influences, once again, Control Enter. Famous examples, Control Enter. Dark fantasies versus other fantasy types, and there we go. So as you can see, I have different spaces of it, and there we go. Now the next thing to do is to add, of course, your own table of contents. So I'm going to go from the start of this page, or let's say, for example, that here it says dark fantasy, and I go for Control Enter to enter a new page. This is where I'm going to be starting with my table of content. I select this element and I make sure that this one is a heading number 2. Then I go for Enter twice, and here I'm going to focus directly into my insert type and make sure that I have selected the element that says table of contents. Just like that, the table of contents has been generated automatically. So you can see that depending on what is the actual selection that you have chose, all the headers you have just created is going to be generating the table of contents. For example, the dark fantasy, if I click Control Games, for example, this will be sending me directly into games. If there's a few elements that you don't want it to see, for example, I can just select this and even delete it. And if this one does not been deleted, what you can do, of course, is to go all your way down. And let's say, for example, here we have the famous examples. I select literature, games, and film and TV, and all of this should be noticed as only text or a list paragraph. Just like that, this will be having, for example, here the literature. I'm going to be changing the formatted games and film and TV. Then what I needed to do is to give them a little bit more space, and here I can go once again into the home section, and I wanted to be changing this as a multi-level list or a level list with actual bullets. So what I'm going to do here is to change the actual format of what I see here, but instead of giving them the actual title, this is only normal. Now I can go all my way up, go back into my table of contents, select my table of content, which usually is all of this, the layout, my table of content, usually here it is, and I hit for the option that says update. Just like that, my table of content has now been correctly updated, and I no longer have this. I only have the table Dark Fantasy, the table of content, Warriors Dark Fantasy, the key characters, Region, Fables, example, whatever. So you can see, for example, that this Dark Fantasy is the actual title. I don't want to include this, for example, into it. So I wanted to make sure that this table of contents only has, for example, that option when I go for update the table of content or format the table of contents, where I can just use show header opt to right line, left line, or I can change the table like this and the heading the actual list. And just like that, check out how they actually appear. And there we go. So if you have any questions, you can let me know in the comments below, guys. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you want to see more great tools how you can add your own table of contents directly here into the Microsoft Word. Thank you once again for watching. See you guys next time.